Donald's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, the egregiously unqualified and dangerous Robert F. Kennedy Jr., faced some intense scrutiny before the Senate Finance Committee today. You'll never guess from which party. Here's a brief look at how it went.
Did you say it, Mr. Kennedy? This
believe
matters. It doesn't matter what you come here and say that isn't true, that's not reflective of what you really believe, that you haven't said over decade after decade after decade, because unlike other jobs we're confirming around this place, this is a job where it is life and death for the kids that I used to work for in the Denver public schools and for families all over this country that are suffering from living in the richest country of the world that can't deliver basic health care and basic mental health care to them. It's too important for the games that you're playing, Mr. Kennedy.
Way to go, Senator Bennett. And thankfully, that he was not the only senator to take it to Bob Kennedy. Before we dive in, and there is a lot more to get to, please take a second to like and share this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. After you subscribe, click on the bell and you will be alerted every time a new video drops. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We are now available on all podcast platforms. Follow us here and give us a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our channel, our content. All right, let's take a look at some of the topics that came up in today's hearing. First of all, we know that Robert Kennedy is a conspiracy theorist, and obviously that was top of mind for many senators, at least Democratic ones. He's faced intense scrutiny and criticism for his long-standing anti-vaccine views, although he now is claiming that he's pro-vaccine. Right. I just want to take a second to say very, very strongly that he is not a vaccine skeptic, as the New York Times or the Washington Post would have you believe. He is virulently anti-vaccine and for over decades, as Senator Bennett pointed out, has made the most outrageous, unfounded claims against safe and available vaccines that are designed to prevent communicable diseases from spreading. All right. Kennedy has tried to spread misinformation and falsehoods about vaccine safety. And one of the things for which he's most infamous is perpetuating the oft-debunked claim that vaccines cause autism, which they do not. He has also promoted drinking raw milk, which the Food and Drug Administration, which may not exist in the next few months, can pose a serious health risk. He stated on numerous occasions that vaccines, quote, poisoned an entire generation of American children, unquote, and that doctors have, quote, butchered all these children, unquote, by administering shots that were recommended by federal authorities. When asked in the hearing about his stance on vaccines, Kennedy misrepresented his past comments, and it caused quite a reaction. Let's watch.
Make sure the committee is clear about a few things. News reports have claimed that I'm anti-vaccine or anti-industry. I am neither. I am pro-safety.
We'll have order.
That was a spectator, not an actual senator. But yeah, you lie. You lie. And the breathtaking arrogance of that lie, because there is so much documentary evidence of his stance that is literally just part of the Republican Party now. Don't believe what you see with your own eyes. Democrats, including Senator Ron Wyden, argued that his stance endangers public health, because it does, particularly with his past anti-vaccine activism, which is linked to a 2019 Samoa measles outbreak. This should be the end of the conversation. Check out this clip.
I went there, nothing to do with vaccines. I went there to introduce a medical informatics system that would digitalize records in Samoa and make health delivery much more efficient. I never gave any public statement about vaccines. You cannot find a single Samoan who will say, I didn't get a vaccine because of Bobby Kennedy. I went in June of 2019. The measles outbreak started in August. Oh, clearly I had nothing to do with the measles. Not only that.
Mr. Kennedy.
Okay, I guess all of those investigative reports about saying that you actually were the cause of people denying their children vaccines in Samoa because of you aren't true. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, I mentioned this earlier. Democrats were concerned about Whitehouse because despite being a Democrat and one of the better ones, Democrats weren't sure if Whitehouse was going to refuse to confirm Kennedy for a couple of reasons. The most troubling of which, quite honestly, is that they're lifelong friends and they were roommates in law school or something. However, Whitehouse did a good job and showed his concern for Kennedy's connections to measles outbreaks. This is what Senator Whitehouse had to say.
We've just had a measles case in Rhode Island, the first since 2013. And frankly, you frighten people.
Yes, you frighten people because the disinformation you spread kills people. Some of the hearing got bizarre. This is Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado again challenging Kennedy on his views regarding COVID-19 conspiracies.
To ask these in a manner that's faithful to what you actually said, because I didn't want to have a debate about whether you actually said them. So I'm asking you yes or no, Mr. Kennedy. Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say that it targets black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews?
I quoted a study, Your Honor. I quoted an NIH study that showed that
I'll take that as a yes. I have to move on.
Yes, that is what he said. Bennett went on to ask if Kennedy had previously stated that Lyme disease is likely a materially engineered bioweapon. Watch this.
I have to move on, Mr. I have to move on. Did you say that Lyme disease is highly likely a materially engineered bioweapon? I made sure I put in the highly likely. Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered bioweapon?
I probably did say that.
Did you say that?
And that's what the developer of Lyme
I want all
disease
of our
said.
colleagues to hear it, Mr. Kennedy.
Bennett was on fire today, and it was really well done. He also went after Kennedy about his views on pesticides.
Hear it, Mr. Kennedy. I want them to hear it. You said yes. Did you say that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender?
No, I never said that.
Okay, I have the record that I'll give to the chairman, and he can make his judgment.
Okay, let's shed some light on what the senator is referring to. Here's Robert Kennedy in his own words.
I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures, including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing. They're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there.
Yes, and chemtrails make frogs gay. This is the guy who's going to be in charge of the health of over 360 million Americans. When it was Senator Tina Smith's turn, Democrat of Minnesota, she asked Kennedy about his beliefs on antidepressants because he's claimed in the past that he thinks antidepressants are the cause of school shootings. This is his response. Take a look.
In an interview in 2023 and again in 2024, you blamed school shootings on antidepressants. You said, and this is a quote, "There is no time in American history or human history that kids were going to shoot schools and shooting their classmates. It really started happening coterminous with the introduction of these drugs, with Prozac and with other drugs." So do you believe, as you've said, that antidepressants cause school shootings? This should be a simple question.
I don't think anybody can answer that question, and I didn't answer that question. I said it
So
should
your
be
answer
studied.
is...
I said it should be studied along with other potential culprits like
So they may cause...
social media. But I don't know. I would never make, because there's no science on that,
Well,
Senator.
there is, Senator. There is, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you for the promotion.
The science shows that there is no link between school shootings and antidepressants. And in fact, most school shooters were not even treated with antidepressants. And of those that were, there was no evidence of association. You know,
I don't think you
my
can
question
say that, Senator, because HIPAA rules, nobody knows.
well, that is Mr. Kennedy.
Oh, wow. Okay. How do we break that one down? First of all, I'm quite fond of nobody can answer the question that I answered. Sophistry. Okay. He says there's no science about this. That is absurd. But let's remember, he's an environmental attorney. He doesn't have a medical degree. He's not an immunologist. He's not a virologist. He's a know-nothing conspiracy theorist who likes getting attention, apparently. And why would you think that antidepressants are the cause of something like school shootings anyway? Like, where is he consuming his misinformation? So I'm glad that Senator Smith kept pressing him. But again, pretty much all we were treated to was his lying and dissembling and evading. Next up was Georgia Senator Democrat Raphael Warnock, who asked Kennedy about his comparison of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, to Nazi death camps, as well as the comparison of the CDC to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. Warnock, as he almost always does, brought the receipts. Let's watch.
Work to Nazi death camps. You've compared it to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. You've also said that many of them belong, this is a direct quote, many of them belong in jail. I need to know, do you stand by those statements that you made in the past, or do you retract those previous statements?
Senator, I don't believe that I ever compared the CDC to Nazi death camps.
So you retract those statements?
I'm not retracting it. I never said it.
Well, actually, I have a transcript
Of me saying that it's a Nazi death camp?
Let me read your words. It says that the institution CDC and the vaccine program, is your description of their work, is more important than the children that it's supposed to protect. And you know, it's the same reason we had a pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church. It's because people were able to convince themselves that the institution of the church was more important than these little boys and girls who were being raped. That's pretty provocative language. You said in another statement to me, this is like Nazi death camp. I mean, let me finish. I'm just reading your words. I mean, what happened to these kids? 1 in 31 boys in this country, their minds are being robbed.
Imagine not remembering comparing anything to Nazi death camps. Also, do you know why Senator Warnock had a transcript? Because there are recordings. In 2013, Bob Kennedy spoke at a series of conferences put on by the group Autism One, which has adopted this slogan, make our children healthy again. Pro tip, best way to do that is keep Robert Kennedy as far away as humanly possible from our children. When asked by a member of the audience, why hasn't the CDC acknowledged autism? Kennedy says it was not for him to say, quote, why someone else is doing something, unquote, before launching into a conspiracy theory about secret vaccine letters and how institutions like the CDC go to the extremes. The Centers for Disease Control have not recognized autism. I mean, it seems like somebody is as plugged in to American concerns about America's health and perpetuating the myth that vaccines cause autism. You think he would know. It didn't get any better when Medicaid became the topic of conversation. Senator Bill Cassidy, who's a Republican from Louisiana, asked Kennedy what reforms he would propose for Medicaid. And Kennedy claimed that Americans would prefer to be on private insurance, and that people don't like being covered by the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid, says the really, really rich guy. Let's watch this clip.
There are all kinds of exciting things that we can be doing, including cooperatives, which President Trump has supported, including health savings accounts, which President Trump has supported. All of these things to make people more accountable for their own health.
And so it would bring the cooperatives and the health savings accounts into Medicare and Medicaid?
Exactly. Americans by and large, do not like the Affordable Care Act. People are on it. They don't like Medicaid. They like Medicare. And they like private insurance. We need to listen to what they would prefer to be on private insurance. Most Americans, if they can afford to be, will be on private insurance.
I don't know about you, but Kennedy never asked me what I thought about the Affordable Care Act or Medicaid or Medicare or private insurance. I think something like 45 million Americans who were not insured before the Affordable Care Act now are insured because I'm pretty sure those people like having health insurance. The other thing, too, is, what is a really, really terrible way to keep people healthy? Make it impossible for them to get health care. This leads to the next topic that came up. And this is actually something that has caused him problems for members of both parties, because much like the person who nominated him, Kennedy has expressed conflicting statements on abortion. I'm pretty sure when he was a Democrat, he was pro-choice. But since then, he's supported a national 15 to 21 week ban. Again, despite previously not being for any bans at all. And this, again, has caused him problems with Republicans who think that a 15-week ban is just way too generous and that the ban should start either at 6 weeks or conception, which is pretty much the same thing, biologically speaking. And here's New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan, who turns his own words against him.
Now, let's go to something we agree upon. I am really heartened to see that one area where we agree on is on women's reproductive freedom. In your own words, it's not the government's place to tell people what to do with their bodies. You said that, correct? Yep. Mr. Kennedy, in 2023, you came to New Hampshire and said, quote, I'm pro-choice. I don't think the government has any business telling people what they can or cannot do with their body. So you said that, right?
Yes.
Yep. But you also said we need to trust the women to make that choice because I don't trust government to make any choices. You said that too, right?
Yes.
It is remarkable that you have such a long record of fighting for women's reproductive freedom, and really great that my Republican colleagues are so open to voting for a pro-choice HHS Secretary.
Well played, Senator. Well played. Yeah, that's called hanging them by their own petard. You do not get to do that. You do not get to say for decades that you are a virulent anti-vaxxer or that you are really pro-choice, and then 5 minutes after getting nominated by a guy who has no principles or ideology whatsoever, suddenly it's the opposite. Then, of course, and this is another one of those Pete Hegseth situations where any one of dozens of issues with these candidates should have been disqualified. But Republicans are willing to look the other way for many various reasons. But I think part of it, too, is just to get the worst possible people in so that they can make as many people's lives miserable as possible. I don't think we really needed anything more than what Bob Kennedy's cousin, Caroline Kennedy, had to say. Caroline Kennedy is the daughter of President John F. Kennedy. And she, who's known Bob Kennedy her whole life, condemned his nomination in a letter to the Senate, calling him a quote unquote predator and accusing him of preying on vulnerable parents. She wrote, he lacks any relevant government, financial, management, or medical experience. His views on vaccines are dangerous and willfully misinformed. Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids while building a following, hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs. It's the hypocrisy. Republicans don't care about hypocrisy. Republicans do not care about Bob Kennedy's beliefs or pretense at having any beliefs. They know he has proven himself to be the kind of person who will do whatever he is told to do, even if, or perhaps especially if, that means destroying the health of tens of millions of Americans. A recent poll shows that public support for Bob Kennedy's nomination is divided, with 30% approval and 40% disapproval. His controversial positions, including those on vaccines, abortion, and health policy, make his confirmation uncertain. Again, though, you have to factor the vile sycophancy of the Republican senators into the mix. I do have to say that I'm a little surprised that their disapproval number for him isn't higher. But again, that means that 30% of people polled didn't have an opinion one way or the other. This is not typically the kind of thing, unfortunately, Americans pay all of that much attention to. So tomorrow there will be more. He is going to be brought in front of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. We, of course, will be keeping you up to date and live streaming that. And then it will be up to the committee he appeared in front of today to decide whether or not to move his confirmation vote to the full Senate. It goes without saying that, of course, that should not happen. But I'm not holding my breath, and neither should you. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Please leave comments in the section below. Let's keep the conversation going. This is a very, very important topic that is crucial to the health of all Americans. Thank you so much for watching. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.